Hello, everyone. This is Chala Dinkoy, CEO and founder of The Repositioning Expert. I'm here with another edition of my podcast, Naked Marketing, where we're dressed, but our honesty is naked. We are getting honest about Croft Edwards marketing mistakes. But first, let's meet him. Thanks for being here, Croft.
Great to be here. I'm excited.
Yeah. So tell us who you help and what you do.
So fundamentally, I help any organization that has leaders. I used to have a niche of mining and refining, but it's kind of evolved into a lot of different organizations, from healthcare to startups to technology to working a lot right now with the U.S. military.
Okay. So tell us about what kind of issues you help with.
Fundamentally, leadership. How not just so much, okay, we need to be leaders, but how do you actually do that? So I do a lot of work in what's called ontological coaching, which looks at how we show up as human beings. So we look at how we show up fundamentally in three domains: how we use language, how we navigate moods and emotions, and then how we show up in our physical bodies. So I work a lot with leadership presence, difficult conversations, and organizations, and how they create the future they want to create.
Wow. And how on earth did you come to do this? Were you yourself in the corporate world? You were a leader and you had those issues, and then you went and decided to one day become a coach like me? Or how did that all happen?
Actually, when I was 8 years old, I read Omar Bradley, the World War II general's autobiography. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it piqued in me a fundamental question I've been exploring ever since, which was, how was he, or any leader for that matter, successful? Wow. And then that's evolved into, how do you actually do it? So I'm very big on the actual practices of leadership.
Wow. And did you ever work in the corporate world where it was it's feast or famine in terms of, leadership?
Yeah, my actual background, I have an undergrad degree in finance. When I was in college, I did Army ROTC. And so I spent 5 years on active duty, which was great. But I knew I didn't want to make it a career. So I ended up getting out, spent another 20 years in the National Guard and Reserve, but then started looking what I wanted to do. And I did some, different jobs, and then stumbled into this path of coaching. Mm-hmm. And I didn't work corporate so much, but I've spent countless hours at organizations. So a lot of my work is actually on the ground. So for instance, one of my largest clients was a coal mine. And for 3 years, I would go and spend about a month in the actual coal mine with miners. Oh my God. So I love it. I get to go to so many different type of organizations. This month, I'm going to go spend a day with a senior leader in the military. I'm going to go spend a day at a gear manufacturing facility. So just kind of clients all over. But I didn't actually work corporate, so to speak. And then the flip side is, my wife actually is kind of a corporate type person. So she's worked with companies like GE. And so I got to experience a lot, because as I navigated, she and I would have many conversations about her world. So I feel like I have a pretty good understanding of corporate America, having been in so many, and then being married to my wife.
That's very fortunate. That's amazing. So the world of coaching for me was the ICF, which was the International Coach Federation. And after 18 years working for Pepsi, Pizza Hut, Frito-Lay, I thought, if I get my ICF certification, I could just write my ticket home. People are going to come run to me. And do you know what the ICF median income is for an ICF member worldwide?
Probably pretty low.
It's $20,000. So
yeah, wouldn't surprise me.
Right. So I don't know. Have you experienced that? Other coaches are just not there. They're not making it. They're not getting it.
So I do a lot of mentor coaching for 3 different coach training schools. And what's interesting is, a lot of times when there are a lot of students that think, okay, I've learned to your point, I've learned how to be a coach. Now, why aren't people just knocking down my door? Yeah. And they don't understand that being a coach, yes, you have the skill of being a coach, but you still have to run a business. You have to market a business. You have to build a business. And it's no different whether you're coaching or you're opening a bakery. You still have to get people to come into the door. in some way. And many coaches, that's where they fundamentally struggle, not with the coaching, but how to actually run the business.
Yeah. And for whatever reason with them and with therapists, there's an enormous mindset block against marketing and selling.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Yeah, I'm brilliant. Can't you see that? Shouldn't you just come knock on my door?
Yeah.
And I've had some people that literally quit their job and said, I'm going to go get coach training. I'm like, well, let's not rush that. Have you kind of thought through, what is involved with actually running a business? And it's interesting, the coaches that have succeeded, they're just as competent as business people as they are as coaches.
Yeah.
And so they have to build a business, and they know that. But yeah, very common breakdown I see.
Well, and imagine it happened to me, and my job was marketing. I was a marketing manager for 20 years, and my job was marketing.
And you just thought it would, yeah.
And it happened to me. And so what I did was I figured out one of the things that I was going to tell you about leadership coaching is when I used to speak at the conferences for ICF, because I thought, well, why don't I help these people? They need marketing. And so when I asked, could you please put up your hand if you're a leadership coach? Or I would say, could you please stand? So like half the room would stand, because they all call themselves an executive leadership coach. And biggest mistake that they were making, and we're going to talk about the mistake you made, which I love, but the biggest mistake, and this is what I've niched in, is niching. They were not niched. They were not a specialist, because leadership is, as to your point, so many different facets, so many ways you can get to it, so many different industries call it a different thing, use different words, use different definitions. So that's one of the biggest things that I did for them at the time. And the problem was, of course, that none of them had the mindset to pay the kind of money that I'm now making to be able to hire the top level coaches. And that was the big disconnect there. So
I think a lot, go ahead.
What has been your experience with when you say I'm a leadership coach? Like, how does it go?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know that I say it a ton, other than I'm just in conversation. And then, but I do think from an embodiment perspective, we as human beings understand things on a embodied perspective, on the humanity connecting energy level. And many times what happens, I think, is people show up and they go, I don't really believe I'm a coach. And that's the message they send to somebody else. And so the person they're talking with goes, okay, that's nice. And I think what happens is you have to reach a level to where you believe you are an offer, that the other person believes it. Right. So I tell young coaches or newer coaches, you will become a coach when you become a coach. And what I mean by that is you have to embody this.
Yeah.
And so one of the things I really try to get them to see is you already have a coaching client, whether you're starting off or whatever. And this coaching client is the most difficult coaching client you're ever going to have. And they're stubborn, and they have all sorts of assessments and ideas and opinions. And this person is you. And if you can't get you out of the way, you won't survive in coaching, because it is everybody. I can't tell you how many people want to be coaches.
Yeah.
But to your point, I know a lot of coaches that don't make much, and I've been there, and it is tough.
So how long have you been doing this?
I have actually been coaching since 2001, so over 20 years.
Wow, that's amazing. So let's talk about marketing. This is a marketing show. Tell us how you get your current clients without word of mouth right now.
So right now, I actually do a lot of, I would say, use the term coach for hire. I have my clients, which most of my clients just come through referrals, and I don't have to do much. I do a fair amount. I'm starting to, again, do keynotes and leadership, type things. I've got a speech coming up next month. And then I have a lot of where I'm a subcontractor for organizations that need coaches. So I'm actually in a great place now because I have more coaching clients than I can even deal with. So yeah, so I'm actually at a point where I'm going, I'm coaching too much actually right now.
Cool. Put up your prices.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm doing is I'm kind of going, okay, now it's start, who do I want to coach and at what price type thing. So,
exactly. So, and that brings us to the naked marketing question, which is, what was the big mistake that you made along the way in your marketing?
So my biggest mistake was when I started out, worked for a company that was a small boutique coaching firm. And the father built the company, very successful. And then he got cancer and died very quickly. And his son took over. And the old joke, how do you make $1 million company? You start with a $6 million company. And so he very quickly kind of turned it into that. But luckily, as the company started to crumble, I ended up, a lot of the clients said, no, Croft, we want you to come with us. We don't want the parent company. So I had a lot of great clients.
Yeah.
And I thought, great, I don't have to market, because I literally had more work. And then I had a couple events happen in 2009. I lost some big clients just overnight, kind of thing. Wasn't anything I did. And I also knew that this isn't sustainable. I can't just have clients. I'm just going to expect that clients drop my lap. So I realized that I didn't have a marketing plan. And if I wanted to sustain, it wasn't a question of when I was going to have, downturns or a big client was going to disappear. It was just a matter of when. Yeah. So I said, okay, I've got to really put effort into having a business model which is sustainable.
Yeah.
And that's when I really started doing marketing.
So what did you do? What kind of marketing did you do?
So we rebranded the company. I partnered with an organization, the Story Studio, phenomenal, Emily Aiken. And we started looking at what is my brand. And so my methodology is called Leadership Flow being the study of ultimate performance. And it was through that process that I really started to realize, oh my gosh, I've got a methodology here. And one of my favorite moments was Emily said, yeah. And so when we started doing social media, and I said, well, wait a second. I don't do social media. Right. I had this whole story about, I'm not going to do social media. It's not for me, blah, blah, blah. And she said in her wisdom, she said, wow, for somebody who's an expert on change, you don't sound like you really want to make some change. And I was like, oh, touche. And so what I did was I actually kind of just jumped into it. Yeah. And really just started going, okay, this would have been around 2010. And, it was a little bit of the wild, wild west and Twitter. And I started and I fundamentally just started with Twitter. I had my web page as we rebranded it. And then that kind of evolved into writing blogs. And I wrote in the span of, I don't know, a couple, 2-3 years, about 100 blogs, tied it all together. And I have, my web page, still do Twitter. I don't do Instagram or Facebook. And those are both conscious choices. Facebook, just because I like with Facebook, it's just my friends. I want to hear about your kids playing softball or, your cat having kittens. I don't want to hear about whatever you're selling me. Right. So I kept that as kind of personal. And Instagram, it wasn't that I didn't see value. Most of my clients aren't on Instagram. So, I work with refineries, military leaders. I'm not going to find them on there. But what the social media and the marketing did, most importantly, I think this was the real takeaway, was it forced me to start to get clear on what my offer was to the world. Because up until this point, I just got, it's me. I do what I do. Yeah. But after this process, I started to refine, what is leadership flow? What is my methodology? What do I actually stand for? And so now when I'm talking to a potential client, I can see it. To your point, I can kind of see the whole process. I can see the whole sales call kind of unfold, because I'm so aware of, I think, of what my offer is and how I do things. Yeah. And that came as a result of having to get clear, because I remember when I did my first webpage, and I found this guy, Internet Solutions for Less, on Craigslist, $499. He'd build you a webpage. I'm like, oh, perfect. Call the guy. He said, yep, here, go to this template place, pick out a template, and then tell me what you want on the webpage. And I kind of went, well, I thought that's what you're going to do for me, right? And I didn't realize that I had to know what my offer was. And so my first web page was very rudimentary, because I didn't know what to put on that page. And it wasn't until my current web page that I started to go, oh, that's what my offer is. That's how I'm going to brand this. That's how I'm going to put it there. So I just had to get out there and do the marketing and make mistakes and not know what I was doing. so that I could then get to a point where I can go, yeah, this is who I am. This is what my brand is.
That's great. And to be clear, and to people who are watching us, not everybody is as lucky as Croft, because you've ever had to do is passive marketing. So what I teach my clients is, how to do the outreach piece of, okay, you have to have the messaging piece to have the passive, but then you have to take that, and then often you have to do active marketing where you're actually in touch physically or virtually now, to be able to get people on a call with you, to be able to get them to a podcast, or to be able to get them to a masterclass or something, so that you've never had that, you've never had to need that. And that's fabulous. That's really a really flex story.
And I'm very, very well aware of that, I'm probably not the norm. And when I started doing podcasts, I was like, this is great. But I would be interviewed for podcasts like I am now. Yeah. And everyone's like, you need a podcast. But I was like, and then I realized, for me, the ship had already left, because I was at a place where I didn't have the energy anymore to go, okay, I want to really put effort into that. But I think to your point, the key is there's got to be marketing, and you've got to be willing to do whatever it takes to get the sales and the revenue to happen. Yeah. You can't just put it out there and hope. Hope is not a method. And where I think my social media presence has helped me is it does give me credibility. Absolutely. Because somebody can go and they can look at my webpage, they can look at me on Twitter and go, yep, he's legit. They can see that I have a book, they can see whatever it is. But it doesn't replace, you have to get out and have conversations.
Yeah. And the beauty of what is happening in your world is that we typically, something triggers people to go and look at your content, and what's triggering them is referrals in your case. Yeah. But in the case where you don't have referrals, or don't have enough referrals, or don't have the kind of referrals that are going to pay you twice or three times what you want to make, that's when you go out and you have to have a outreach strategy and messaging strategy. Then you trigger them to look at, okay, who is that person online? And then does it hold together with the messaging that they reached out to you with, and the pain point that you can help them with? And
and in marketing, I look back and I think about the sales and marketing hat. I look at coaching, there's three hats. There's you, the coach. There is you, the business leader that's got to make decisions, blah, blah, blah. And then there's you, the salesperson / marketing person. Yeah. And unless you're super busy as a coach, you're going to be super busy as a sales and marketing person. And I fully agree with what you're saying, is that you've got to be able to say, okay, what is my plan? How am I methodically going to go out and develop relationships through social media, through marketing plans? So although I didn't have to, and I'm not in a place where I do that, I absolutely see it as critical, because if you're not willing to do that work, it's no different than if you bought a franchise restaurant.
Exactly.
You've got to still get people to come in your door. Yeah. So, So if you don't have to have people, if you got people knocking on your door, great, but you better be willing to do whatever it takes to get people to come through your door.
That's great. That is great advice. So how can people reach you, Croft?
You can find me. One of the great things about the name Croft Edwards is I don't know of another one. Well, there was my great grandfather, but he's been dead several decades. But croftandcompany.com, or just type Croft Edwards. I'm on Twitter. Very easy to find, and just track me down, and you should be able to find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you. Bye now.